Alrighty, so all the games for match week number 26 is in the books, but as always, I am going to split the review into two parts, and we're going to first look at the Saturday game in this video, and then not sure, tomorrow I'm going to do the review of the Sunday game, because tomorrow I do have another dental appointment, and I'm going to be numb again, and anytime when you, of course, go to a dental appointment and you get numb, yeah, it does take a while for that numbness to wear off, and that, I don't think I can do a review when I sound like kind of a drunk person. So most likely that review could be late. It could be uploaded on Tuesday. I might do it on Tuesday, but one thing I will say is that review will be up, and we'll definitely talk about some of the interesting resort that happened in terms of the Sunday action. But there was also some interesting resort in the Saturday games too. I mean, you know, in terms of the goal scoring, yes, it definitely was not as crazy as what we've seen in these past 2 weeks. In fact, it was going to take a lot to just kind of continue what we saw in the last 2 weeks with 50-plus goals that was scored. But there were definitely some games where the score line was definitely a crooked number, and we'll definitely get to one of those games, and you probably know which one you're looking at right now. But we first start off with the first game, which is the Red Bulls versus FC Cincinnati, and this game was kind of similar to the one that last time both of these teams face off against each other, where, you know, Cincinnati of course got a goal, and then the Red Bulls were able to score on the penalty spot, and the game ended in a 1-1 draw. And in this one, as I said, it's kind of the same thing. Though the first shot didn't come until the 10th minute when Cáceres Jr. puts it right to Celentano before Harper puts it wide from close range. And after kind of a slow start to this game where not much was happening, I thought the Red Bulls were gaining traction and were looking for the early lead. But instead, it's Cincinnati, the one that has the early lead. And it has to be Matt Miazga that scores the goal for Cincinnati. Like, you knew that what a great storyline that would be if Miazga, playing against his former team and the team that he basically played to start his career, that he would score against him. And he scored here from Barrio to make it 1-0 in favor of Cincinnati. It's also interesting that Miazga kind of did celebrate against his former team, which, again, you know, there's that unwritten rule where you, of course, score against your former team, and especially against the team that basically kickstarted your career, you might not want to celebrate. But, you know, Miazga here kind of celebrated a little bit, and that gives Cincinnati a 1-0 lead. Though that lead would be short-lived because of the 21st minute, a penalty was given to the Red Bulls after VAR deemed that Moreno brought down Reyes in the box, which Patrick Klimala was able to put away the penalty, and the game was all tied up at 1 apiece. But that was all the action we were going to get in the first half, because the game really slowed down and it was a tight battle in the midfield, and not much chances that was created from either team. And we go into the second half with the scoreline tied up at 1 apiece. Now in the second half, Reyes would head it wide from close range, but again, not much was happening. I mean, it was a battle in the midfield. There wasn't really much attacking threat by either of these teams. Morgan fired it high on the free kick before, in the 74th minute. Oh man, this was a big missed opportunity for the youngster, you know, Elderman. I mean, he was wide open in the 12-yard box. I think he was thinking about the headlines before he even take his composure to basically spots at home, because, yeah, you know, he was wide open there from 12-yard box and puts that one high. And in the 86th minute, Brenner did have the last chance of the game as he hits one straight to Cornell. But really, it was a game that was kind of uneventful for most part of it, which has been kind of the case, at least for some of these Red Bulls games. Like, barring that 5-4 loss that the Red Bulls had, a lot of Red Bulls games this season, and at least in the past couple of games, haven't been very eventful, and this was one of them, with them getting a 1-1 draw in this one. As the shots in this one, the Red Bulls did outshot FC Cincinnati 14-3, but it's the shots on goal that tells the story. Only 3 shots on goal compared to just 2 that Cincy has. No shots off target compared to 4 that the Red Bulls had. 7 shots that was blocked with the 1 that Cincy had, and possession-wise, 48% possession compared to 52% possession that the Red Bulls has in this game. And overall, I don't think either team will be happy with this result, because, you know, for Cincinnati, it's way too many draws. Like, they've drawn so many games this season that really has kind of held them back in terms of, well, in some way it has kept them in the playoff race, but it has held them back in terms of trying to really get a foothold in terms of maybe get above the red line, because, you know, at the end of the day, draws does not help in terms of trying to get yourself up the standings, unless if every team seems to lose, which at least for the most part, that's kind of is a little bit of the case in the Eastern Conference, and so the same goes for the West. But also for the Red Bulls, it's another resort where they aren't able to get a win at home. They're still stuck at just 3 wins this season at home, which I did check to see is that's the fewest wins at home by any team, and it is. I mean, only 3 wins this year, and that the home struggle is just a problem for this team. Now, the good news is, if this team does make it to the playoffs, and that as long as they don't finish in the top 4, then they should be okay. But the problem is they are in the top 4, and again, if they do play home in their playoff game, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised they could be knocked out in the first round. And it's not just because of the home struggle, but also the history of the New York Red Bulls, a team that always tends to be either 1-out or they make a deep playoff run only to fail on the final hurdle, and that's why there's always that so Metro kind of talk whenever the Red Bulls make it to the playoffs. But that being said, moving on in the next match, we got DC versus the Philadelphia Union, and wow, this was, how should I say this? For DC, I think the only positive I can say coming out of this game is that at least they didn't lose 7-0 in this one, and they concede less goal than the Philadelphia Union. Though I will also say, in a more serious note, this game didn't really look like it was going to be 6-0 until the second half. Like, I would say that if you actually watch this game, DC was actually the better team for the first 20 minutes, as crazy as that sound. And you could also argue the fact that they probably should have got a penalty early in this game, and that if they got that penalty and got that 1-0 lead early in this one, maybe this wouldn't be a result what we saw. But unfortunately, yeah, I mean, this was almost kind of a repeat of that 7-0 result, especially in the second half, where basically the Union just blown DC out of the door. Well, it was a combination of that and just DC decided to simply gave up in the second half. Now, in the first half, like I said, I thought DC kind of got off to a good start. Barry blasted it wide, but then, this was also the controversial call, as DC thought that Jack Elliott handballed that one in the box, and not only the fact that of course is a handball, but it wasn't even close. Like, you can clearly see Jack Elliott, his hand was in an outstretched position when that ball hit his hand, and that is as clear as a penalty as it gets. And the fact that they did of course take a look at VAR in the room in Atlanta, but I'm pretty sure that room is not watching the same game, because my oh my, how in the world did they miss that blatant handball call? I would never know. And again, this is where DC, even though I know they'll be embarrassed to talk about, they can maybe at least use that as a way to say, well, yes, that should have been a penalty and that could have changed the game. But yeah, it wasn't given, and that for the Union and certainly for Jack Elliott, he is very lucky the fact that he got away with that one. But Carranza then hits one right to Romo. But again, I thought it was a much positive start for DC. They're getting some good half chances, and they were controlling some possession. They almost had a chance to take the lead again as the post denied Funtas and DC the opening goal. And I thought this was a completely different DC team that lost 7-0 in the previous meeting. Little do we know that as we get to the second half, that would not actually be the same. Though in the 26th minute, Carranza did put it wide from long range before Romo did deny Carranza, and this is when the game started to kind of change. This is when the Union really started to get into this game. I mean, I mentioned they have ride out the storm early in this one. They kind of got off to a slow start, but they started to really press for the opening goal. There was a dangerous cross that was coming in for DC, which Blake had to force to palm that one away. Another shout for a handball for DC that was not given, though this one, I think this one was the right call. It wasn't really as clear and obvious as the Jack Elliott one that we saw in the 3rd minute. Carranza then puts it wide from 17 yards down the 35th minute. Before in the 37th minute, the Union would take the lead. It's Michael Root scoring from Carranza and Gastek to give the Union a 1-0 lead, because of course Michael Root has to score against DC. Like, between him and Carranza, I'm pretty sure they really love to play against DC United, because they always tend to score against them, and it was the case in this one too, especially for Julian Carranza. But in the first minute of stoppage time, a penalty was given to the Union as VAR deemed that Alfaro brought down Uru in the box, which in the end I thought that was the right call. It was pretty clear that Alfaro made a cynical challenge on Uru in the box, which Gastek basically steps up and he buries that penalty to give the Union a 2-0 lead. And yeah, that was kind of started to be a telling sign that, this looked like it can get ugly again. And it would be, because as we head into the second half, this is when things kind of turn into what we saw in that 7-0 result early this season. And it all started probably early in the second half as Carranza would score from Gastek and Uru to make it 3-0 in favor of the Union. Though Blake did head to deny Funtas on the front post as DC was trying to maybe get one back. Then in the 70th minute, Carranza would score again as he 5-hole Romo there with that shot to make it 4-0 in favor of the Union. And I also know DC looked like they were giving up as the Union was just blowing this one open, like what we saw in that 7-0 result. Romo then denied Carranza from close range before he denied McGlynn in the 73rd minute. Like, DC was not only giving up in this game, but it was just a shooting gallery in front of Romo's goal. And in the 75th minute, Carranza would complete the hat trick as he scored here to make it 5-0 in favor of the Union, and he also became the second player to score a hat trick against the same team twice. Only Kobe Jones, of course, did it, I believe, in the early 2000s. But yeah, that is something is going to go down in the history book. Though he can definitely thank Romo for that, because as well as, up to that point, I don't think Romo kind of got hung out to dry in terms of that. Yeah, this was an absolute stinker that he had here. I mean, he basically just gifted it right to Carranza, and you know when a team quit, even when the goalkeeper are gifting goals, and that, yeah, this was just an absolute gift from Federico Romo. And Carranza said, "Thank you very much. I'm just gonna take the hat trick once again against the same team." And yeah, that gives a 5-0 lead in favor of the Union, and then it would be 6-0 in favor of the Union as Corey Burke would get on the score sheet from McGlynn and Martinez to make it that score. And then we almost had the meme score again in the 5th minute of stoppage time as Arison almost made it 7-0 again against DC, but he was denied by Romo there. And yeah, in the end, Union did it again. I mean, it is incredible, the fact that, I know this season I've talked about the Union has always been a team that's been feast or famine in terms of goal scoring. If they can score a couple of goals, yeah, they are going to score like 4, 5, 6, and 7 goals. But then when they struggle, they maybe score like 1 or 2 goals. But still, it's incredible that statement continued to be true. And it's also incredible the fact that I know the Union, at least for these past 5 years, has single-handedly owned DC United with the pretty much them only losing once ever since 2017. But yeah, it is incredible the fact that they did again. I mean, you would think that DC would learn from their mistake, especially again they played well in the first half, and then they remember that, yeah, they're DC United, and that Philly basically decided that, yeah, we're going to roll it back like what we did in the last match, and once again drop a 6 spot in this game. Shots in this one, 22 shots compared to the 14 that DC had. 12 shots on goal. I mean, again, for Romo, I know he gave up one of the goal, which was bad, but I gotta feel bad for him, the fact that he was just completely hung out to dry in this game, and also the 7-0 result compared to 2 that DC had. 7 shots off target for the 10 that DC had. 2 shots that was blocked for the 3 that the Union has, and possession-wise, 50% for both of these teams. And I think the less said about this resort that we'll talk about in terms of implication, the better, because I'm pretty sure everybody knows that if you're a DC fan, you're rightfully so embarrassed about this resort. And this again is another mark of just increased pressure in terms of this front office, because like I said, I think there's got to be some changes that needs to be made in the front office. I mean, they already got a new head coach in Wayne Rooney, and at least besides the magical performance against Orlando City, he hasn't really done well so far. But I think this team is not there's not just a problem in terms of head coaching. There's problems in terms of upper management, and also in this team itself. I mean, they're almost literally like the San Jose Earthquakes of the Eastern Conference. They're basically having the same problem with the ownership is bad. The front office is bad too, and now it seems like their future coach in Wayne Rooney isn't really working out the magic like they thought that he would bring straight away with this club. But that being said, moving on in terms of the next match, and Unfortunately, the next match I'll talk about is not even close either, because in this game between Montreal versus New England, well, one interesting story that came out of this game is that Georgi Mihailovic could be sold for Montreal in this game, and I know that there's always that rumor, the fact that Mihailovic could potentially move on to Europe, but I didn't think that this summer transfer window was the time to do so. Now, there's also an interesting rumor. Well, there's also a rumor saying that it seems like he is going to be going to the Netherlands and going to the Eredivisie, but it seems like most likely Montreal might be keeping him with this team until the end of the season. So in some way, Montreal probably won't be losing him for the entire season if that rumor is true. And I think the only reason why he didn't play in this game is that maybe he decided to kind of had to go overseas to do a medical before agreeing to all the paperwork. Again, I'll talk a little bit more when we get to the news of the week episode. But in a game where they did not have Mihailovic, it seemed like they didn't miss him at all, because this was probably one of the most complete attacking performances and probably the best win that Montreal has at home, because I talked about their home struggle and against a New England team that seems like they have found their stride, and they basically humbled them in this one. In the third minute, Corbo did heads it wide from the corner, as I thought it was all Montreal early in this game. They were controlling this game. They were pinning the Revs back. Waterman had a shot that was blocked off the line by his own teammate, so yeah, that's unlucky for Joel Waterman. You always hate to see when that happened. Kyoto then hits one straight to Pechbich after just a bad turnover from New England, and you just sense that the pressure sure is going to lead to the opening goal, and it did, as in the 26th minute, Kai Kamara would score from Kyoto and Shrinier to give Montreal a 1-0 lead. That is a historic goal for Kai Kamara, because with that goal, he's now moved into third all alone in terms of the all-time goal scoring list in MLS history, passing Jeff Cunningham, which he tied last game. And yeah, congratulations to Kai Kamara, of course, reaching that mark. And even though I know he is still a long way in terms of Wando's record, he can still catch Landon Donovan. I mean, he's not that far from Donovan's record, and that, if he does reach that mark, I think, I know Kai Kamara is definitely getting up to that age, and maybe he has 1 or 2 years left in the tank, which is why maybe he might not be able to catch Wando's record. But I didn't think that he was going to catch Donovan's record, and it just shows you how he's probably one of the most underappreciated number 9 in the league, and that I'll definitely do a career video about him once he decides to hang up his boots. But here, he of course gave Montreal a 1-0 lead. Not long after, it will be 2-0 in favor of the host, as Kyoto would score from Lappeenainen to get Montreal a 2-0 lead. Kyoto continued to be in form right now. He's been banging goals left and right every single game. And yeah, that gives Montreal the 2-0 lead heading into the second half. Now in the second half, Heel would blast it high from long range, as I thought the Revs finally started to kind of wake up after that first half was probably one of their worst performance of the season. But just as I thought that maybe they have a chance to get one back and make this interesting, Montreal get that third goal. And guess who? It's Romel Kyoto. He scored from Piet to make it 3-0 in favor of Montreal. By then blast one into the stands, which pretty much sucked up the Revs night, before Rivera had a shot that was deflected wide from close. And I thought Montreal started to kind of shut up shop. Like they were starting to just sit back and just kind of cruise to this 3-0 result. Gonzalez actually came close to get one back for the Revs, but he hits the post on the header before a penalty was given to Montreal, as Heel was brought down by Majevic in the box. Now, that penalty that was given, it was highly debatable, because when you look on the replay, it definitely looked like Majevic kind of embellished that a little bit, but nevertheless, it was still given, and they actually did go to VAR to check to see it. Again, VAR this week, it was not good. Like there was some very inconsistent call, which kind of just sums up VAR, the usage in MLS, because there's times where I've mentioned it. There's time VAR has done a good job in terms of overturning a call or standing a call that is correct, and then there's times where we saw like this play where I feel like this probably should have been overturned, because I didn't think he'll make any contact off of Majevic, and Majevic kind of sailed it a little bit, and not to mention the earlier game that I talked about with Elliott, and how that should have been a handball, and VAR should have overturned that call. But nevertheless, Majevic, of course, who won the penalty, he actually steps up for the penalty, and he would score to make it 4-0 in favor of Montreal, before it was almost 5-0, as He actually had a shot that was tipped over by Petrovic in this game. You know, I'm not going to blame Georgi Petrovic in this game. I mean, I know this was probably the worst game that he has with the Revs, but he, alongside what I said about Romo earlier, was a sitting duck in this game. Like, he was completely hung out to dry by this Revs fans that decided to not show up in this game whatsoever. And that's why we get the result with Montreal winning 4-0 in this one. Shots in this one, 18 shots per the 11 that New England has, 7 shots on goal per the 2 that New England has, 6 shots off target per the 4 that New England has. Both teams had 5 shots off or 5 shots that was blocked in possession-wise, 53% possession compared to 47% possession that the Revs has in this game. And while the Revs does stay above the red line after this heavy loss, this is kind of a result that just kind of sums up the Revs season of why they always have that challenge of not able to get high up in the standings. It's just been very inconsistent from them, and that, you know, after that big victory that they had in the last game, this was definitely a huge letdown against an informed Montreal team. Speaking of an informed team, moving on in terms of the next match, you know who else is also in red hot form in the East? Inter Miami. They got a 2-1 win against Toronto FC in a game where you maybe sense that this might be the final nail in the coffin for TFC. Well, actually, I wouldn't say it's the final nail in the coffin because we have seen how crazy the playoff race has been for both conferences, but you just kind of sense that the writings are starting to be on the wall for TFC. Like, they desperately need a win after they did not get a result in the previous game against the Revs, and yeah, here they basically got nothing out of this one as Inter Miami, who has been really good this season at home, continue that strong home form of a 2-1 win. Now, in the 8th minute, Callender tipped Bernardeschi cornered over before Bernardeschi did fires it high from close range. And I thought TFC kind of started the better side again. Federico Bernardeschi was up to his good again, as he was definitely a dangerous man in this one, as it's been the case ever since he arrived with TFC. Though in the 25th minute, it would be Inter Miami, the one that gets the opening goal, as John Mota would score here from Higuain to give Inter Miami a 1-0 lead. And yeah, this was a howler from Bono. And by the way, this was not a great week for goalkeepers. I mean, there was some bad goalkeeping error this week. I've already talked about it in that game between the Union and DC United, and this was one of them too. Like, this was a shot from Mota that, you know, even though it was a knuckler, you got to say that Bono should have got that one. Like, he basically just kind of had a Rob Green moment there, just spills it and it goes into the back of the net. And yeah, that gives Inter Miami a 1-0 lead. But the good news for TFC, they wouldn't be down for long, because just 3 minutes later, Insigne would score here to tie the game up at 1 apiece, and then Bernardeschi would try to give TFC the lead, but he puts that one wide in the 38th minute. Taylor then hits one straight to Bono, but then in the 44th minute, Miami restored the lead. It's Lassiter scoring from Damian Lowe to give Miami the lead again. Well-worked free kick there from Miami, but also some very questionable defending from TFC, which is kind of also sums up this season for them too, where, again, this has always been the biggest question about this team. Yes, they have added a lot of good attacking pieces, but that defense is still the same defense from the time when they keep losing games left and right, and that is something that I think TFC will definitely have to address as we head to the off season if they do not make it to the playoffs. And even if they do make it to the playoffs, they gotta address it, because that is really holding them back in terms of getting themselves back to the glory days that we saw a couple of years ago. Now, we head to halftime with Miami leading 2-1, and the second half, Insigne blasted high from long range as Toronto once again, I thought they were on the front foot and was looking for the equalizer. Then, though, there was a shout for a penalty for Miami that was not given in the 67th minute, before there was another shout for a penalty for the host that was not given. And really, as the time winds down, Miami was kind of shutting up shop. They were kind of going in full bunker mode and was looking to seal a 2-1 win. And normally, you know, when you're the host, we've seen before where teams decide to do that, and some teams have been able to do so. But knowing how recent resort has gone and knowing the narrative of, you know, you just simply cannot bunker for the remaining of the game and expect the fact that you are able to get a win. This was definitely nervous time for Inter Miami fans. In fact, their heart probably dropped in the 3rd minute of stoppage time, as there was a huge shout for a penalty for TFC after Bernardeschi thought that he was brought down in the box, but instead, the full-time whistle was blown. Like, the whistle was blown, I'm pretty sure every Inter Miami fans, their heart basically sunk, because they thought that the referee was going to point to the spot, but in the end he basically blow for the full-time whistle. And yeah, TFC was definitely not happy about that, though. When you look on the replay, yeah, I think that was the right call, because it definitely looked like it was a bit soft for me to call a penalty, especially Bernardeschi kind of sold it a little bit, and I think in the end it was a right call for them to not give a penalty. But yeah, in the end, a massive win for Inter Miami. I mean, now they're above the red line. They were at one point as high as fifth place, which is, I believe, the highest that they have ever gone in their franchise history. And although they actually have now dropped down to sixth position, they're actually now in a good position of making the playoffs, and actually kind of control their own destiny a little bit of making the playoffs. Shots in this one, 8 shots for the 16 that TFC had. Both teams had 4 shots on goal. 1 shots off target for the 6 that TFC had. 3 shots that was blocked for the 6 that TFC had. And possession-wise, 59% possession compared to the 41% possession that Inter Miami has in this game. And like I said, for TFC, I mean, that room for error and the room for dropping points if they still can make it to play is now even thinner. And probably now it's at a point where I feel like it's pretty much must-win territory for them. I mean, the rest of the season, you got to say they have to take maximum points at home, because, again, this is also a team that have shown before that they have struggled on the road, which is why, again, those drop home points that they had in the past couple of weeks, even with the likes of Insigne and Bernardeschi playing very well, those drop points and the defense giving up goals, and also goalkeeping errors is really started to be the main culprit of why this team looked like they're not going to make that late playoff push that maybe TFC fans were hoping when they, of course, got that attacking weapon. I mean, as the old saying goes, you can have every good attacking option on your team, but as long as you can't defense and you can't keep the ball out of your net, it's going to be very hard for you to get points, and it's very hard to win games. But that being said, I'm going to switch boards now and look at the next 4 games, or the last 4 games, to finish off the Saturday night action in terms of match week number 26. Moving on, in terms of the next game, is Minnesota and Austin. And I'm not going to lie, this was probably the biggest win for the Loons this season. I mean, I know recently in this incredible form that they have been on, there's been some very big wins, especially on the road. But I say that this is probably the biggest win for the Loons this season, because they were facing against Austin, a team that has been the best team this season on the road, and facing against a very good attack, and for the most part, they kind of shut them down for most part of this game. Although I will say that this victory by the Loons was probably the most Minnesota United win that they had, especially during this stretch, where, how I always said about Loons game, how they just never make it easy on themselves, and how they always tends to make me clutch my butt for the last 20 minutes, because they're going to try to go rogue heave mode and try to hang on for dear life. Well, it shouldn't be a big surprise that it happened again in this one, and that, again, the pattern in this game was pretty much the same as we have seen in these past couple of wins. They score the early goal, they give up a goal, and then they score another one and just hold on for the rest and hope for the best. And at least for the past couple of games, they have been able to get out with all 3 points. Now, early on in the first half, Le did have the first shot of the game, but that one hit straight to Stuver before Reynoso bends it into the side netting from 22 yards out. And I know Reynoso got on the score sheet here, but yeah, this was not one of his best game. I mean, this was with the form that Reynoso has been in, and I think he has set a very high bar for himself with the form that he's in. Yeah, this was kind of a letdown performance for him, but I'll accept it because of the fact that, in the end, his team is still able to get the victory, and that all good players will have at least one off game or so. And that also kind of just shows you how, that narrative of the fact that Minnesota can only win games and that everything's center Reynoso, I think that narrative probably is started to slowly die out, because this team has multiple weapons on the attack, as I will talk about throughout this game, where even though Reynoso wasn't having a very good game, other player stepped up for this team on the attack. Then or actually before I mention what happened in the 17th minute, I want to mention that the Loons, of course, we're off to a good start, though. Again, the final ball, I feel like could have been a little bit better in this game. It was a little bit sloppy for them, though it was kind of the same case for Austin too. Amaria then went through on goal, but he hits that one into side netting. before Le did fires it high from long range. But then a penalty was given to the Loons as Ethan Finley. Remember that, yeah, he was a former Minnesota United player, and he wanted to also help out the Loons a little bit, as he basically brought down Reynoso in the box with a clumsy challenge. I guarantee you, if Ethan Finley was still with this team, he would never make that challenge. I mean, he knows deep in his heart he is still forever a Loons player, and that, yeah, thank you, Ethan, in terms of giving us the penalty. And Reynoso, of course, buries that penalty to give Minnesota a 1-0 lead. And there was no doubt the momentum was definitely with Minnesota as they looked to try to get that second goal. Fragapane tried to do so, but he curled one just high before Fagundes actually put a dangerous free kick across the box, but he was punched away by Dane Sinclair. And I thought Austin started to gain a foothold in this game. And it's not a big surprise because, you know, this is what Austin do. They will find a way to get themselves into the game and trying to tie it up. Though Stuver did deny Benitez on the volley, and I thought this was the second consecutive game that Alan Benitez scored an amazing goal. And I mean, he absolutely powered hit that volley with so much power that, you know, gotta give a lot of credit to Brad Stuver, able to not only palm that one away, but also did not allow a juicy rebound. But in the first minute of stoppage time, a penalty was given to Austin after DJ Taylor handballed that one in the box. I was actually happy to see DJ Taylor back into this game, but yeah, you know, I think it's safe to say that he has kind of lost his brilliance coming back into the starting 11, because yeah, this was not a great moment for him. I mean, when you're a defender and you're taught to slide down, don't put your hands up. And he puts his hands up, the ball hits his hand. It's definitely a penalty. And I know somewhere we're in DC that is watching this game are probably up in arms of how in the world did we not get a penalty in our game. But nevertheless, this one was called correctly, and then Driussi, of course, steps up to put away the penalty to tie the game up at 1 apiece, as that would be the scoreline heading into the second half. And again, it also felt like it was a backbreaker for the Loons because they played so well in the first half. And then the penalty, of course, happened. And how many times we said before that when you concede before halftime, it can really be a momentum changer and could also be a backbreaker for the team that conceded that goal. But if there's one thing about this Minnesota United team, at least in this good form, they've been very mentally tough, and they don't just crumble like we've seen before. Because in the second half, Fragapane would put one right to Stuver, and I thought, again, good press for the Loons. They were hungry to try to get that goal back. And Austin, you know, they got to watch out for those turnovers. This has been a problem for this team in these past couple of weeks, where they have give up some brutal turnover and brutal goal. And little do we know that kind of will foreshadow of what we're about to see in this game. In the 50th minute, Driussi did blast it high from long range. I mean, again, I thought the Loons did a good job in this game, not only shutting down this Austin attack, but also neutralized Driussi. I mean, I know he did get on the score sheet, but besides that, he didn't really do much that threatened this Loons team, as what we always see him doing, and why he is considered to be the front runner of winning the MVP this season. But there was no doubt that both teams was pushing for the lead. By the way, if you're in neutral, I think this would have been a great game to watch, and you would also say that this kind of felt like a playoff game too, between two very good teams, and also maybe could be a preview in terms of a playoff match between both of these teams in the Western Conference. Reynoso then blasted wide on the free kick, and again, the Loons, they were getting close to that equalizer, but can they do a little bit better in that final ball? Because I just feel like that final ball was just a step off. Reynoso then puts it wide again on the free kick, but then in the 62nd minute, Minnesota retake the lead. It's Fragapane scoring here to give the Loons a 2-1 lead, and that was an absolute gift from Cascante. Like, he basically got pickpocket in his own box there, and I mentioned the brutal turnover that Austin has to watch out for, and the thing that they've been doing in these last couple of games that has kind of cost them goals. It happened again in this one, and yeah, that of course gives the Loons a 2-1 lead. But you knew that when this team went up 2-1, as much as I'm hoping that they can add on to this lead, you know they're not going to do that, because you know that this team is going to go shut up shop and going to go rogue heave mode, even if they're playing at home. And that's exactly what happened here, because Austin started to press to try to get that goal back, and it feels like here we go again with the butt clinching. This last 27 minutes, when I was watching this game, this was probably one of the first time where my hands was actually sweating throughout the last 27 minutes. And I've seen some really tense moment for this team throughout this season, but this was one that I was really nervous because I know the ability of Austin able to come back this season. They've done it time and time again, and that I thought that this would be just such a Minnesota thing to do, and especially also knowing this is a team that do concede late goals at time. It feel like maybe that writings was on the wall again. Driussi then puts one right into the side netting in the 73rd minute, but in the 77th minute, Reynoso should have scored here. And with the form that Reynoso has been in, I thought this was in the back of the net when he found himself wide open from 12 yards out, but he missed that one wide there. And again, will these missed chances come back to haunt the Loons? Because you just simply cannot let this game to be a 1-goal lead heading into the last 10 minutes against this Austin team that know how to score late goals. Garcia then puts it high from the post. Mender Garcia, of course, made his debut in this game. I thought he had a decent one. I mean, when they talk about how he has a lot of pace, yeah, they mean it, because he was a very fast player. He blew by those Austin defense a couple of times when he tried to chase down those 50-50 ball. Stuber then denied Arriaga from a tight angle before Stuber would absolutely rob Garcia, though it wouldn't have counted either way because the flag went up. And despite the last 5 minutes, again, there was some close moment for Austin to get the equalizer. In fact, an event that I didn't mention here on the board, I think there was a chance late in the game where one of the Austin players looked like he was on the doorstep to tap that one in, and he puts it wide. It wouldn't have mattered because the flag, of course, went up, and I think it was Gabrielson, the one that was in an offside position there. But either way, that was a scary moment for the Loons, and I thought that would be such a Minnesota way for them to concede after just playing a very great game against one of the best team in the West. And yeah, they were rewarded by that by getting a massive 3 points in this game. As the shots in this one, 15 shots for the 13 that Austin had, 6 shots on goal for the 2 that Austin has, 4 shots off target for the 8 that Minnesota has, 1 shot that was blocked for the 7 that Austin has, and possession-wise, 46% possession, and I actually wrote this wrong. It's actually 54% possession that Austin has in this game. That obviously doesn't equal 100 if I wrote 64%. But yeah, overall, like I said, big win for Minnesota, especially with the way that teams around them either lost or drop points. Now they have a chance that they're actually, they're only 1 point behind Dallas, and they have 2 games in hand over them. And not to mention, they do play against Dallas later in a couple of weeks, and then they also have that big game against RSO, who is just below them. Yeah, things are looking up for this team, and I know now that maybe I don't want to say it just yet, but I think they're in a good shape of potentially making to the playoffs. But I'm pretty sure now the focus for this team is getting a home playoff game, because that when you have a home playoff game, especially at Allianz, which is always seems to be magical. Yeah, this is a team that I think if they can continue this good form that they're in right now, this is a dangerous team to face in the West. And I think besides LAFC, I don't think anybody want to face Minnesota United in the playoffs. But for Austin FC, they got to cut out these defensive mistakes. Like, these defensive mistakes are just killing them game in and game out. And if this team is going to try to be a contender in the West, and I think the next game will be a huge telling story because they get to play against LAFC at home in the battle between the 2 best teams in the West, they need to cut out those defensive mistakes, because the defensive mistake was the reason why they dropped points and they didn't get anything out of this one. And we'll see whether they can do so as we wind down the season. But that being said, moving on in terms of the next game is Colorado versus the Houston Dynamo. So this game, as I mentioned, it was a must-win game for the Rapids. They did not get the win, though they came very close to do so. And it feels like that's kind of the story for them against the Houston Dynamo this season. Remember how they came close to beat the Dynamo in the first meeting down in Houston? Yeah, it feels like it was deja vu all over again of them conceding a goal late in this one. And that, yeah, I mean, the only good news I would say about the Rapids coming out of this game is that at least teams that is above them and the teams that they're chasing also drop points. But my God, you got to say that if they would have got 3 points in this game, they would have been in a much comfortable position than where they are in the standings. Now, early on, Bubaka did hit one just wide on the header before Yarbrough denied Herrera from close range. And I thought both teams was getting some good early chances, but that turns out to be the case at least for the rest of the first half because chances really started to become premium and neither team really did much on the attack. Though Lewis did drag one just wide from close range in the 39th minute before Yarbrough denying Rodriguez on the free kick. And then Felipe Gutierrez hits one straight to Clark in the second minute of stoppage time. And again, despite there was some good chances early and also late in the first half, we had to have time scoreless. Though it wouldn't be scoreless long because after Zardes heads it wide from the corner, the Rapids would take the lead. It's Lawless Abubacar scoring from Felipe Gutierrez to tie, or actually not tie, but give the Rapids a 1-0 lead. So great to see that Felipe Gutierrez is back on the assist chart because he's done a lot of that and also done a lot of goal scoring during his days with Sporting KC not long ago. Lewis then trying to make it 2-0, but he drew one right to Clark before Carrasquilla hits one just wide from long range. We know Coco Carrasquilla can score a long range goal, and he almost did it in that one. But then in the 80th minute, Brian Acosta would actually get his second yellow card of the game, and the Rapids were down to 10 men, and that kind of gave hope for Houston. Like, they were really starting to push to try to get that equalizer. Herrera did try to do so, but he puts it wide from a header, and again, the pressure was coming for Houston, and the Rapids, they were just bunkering in, they were trying to hold on for dear life. But unlike what I said about this performance and also the previous game between Inter Miami versus TFC, where those two teams were able to see out game, and that it was kind of not part of the narrative lately that teams aren't able to hold on to late leads. Well, for the Rapids, they were part of that narrative because in the 5th minute of stoppage time, literally the last kick of the game, Seba Ferreira would score from Stereo to tie the game up at 1 apiece, and yeah, that is the final score of the game, in a game where even though the Rapids got a point out of this one, it absolutely felt like a loss. I mean, anytime when you give up a late goal like that is a loss, but especially in the must-win game, in a game that will help your playoff chances, and you drop points at home like that, it will always feel like a loss. But in terms of shots in this one, 9 shots for both of these teams, 4 shots on goal for the free that Houston has, 5 shots off target for the free that the Dynamo has, 3 shots that was blocked for the none that the Rapids had, and possession-wise, 51% possession compared to 49% possession that the Dynamo has in this game. And also, with a lot of these teams that is out of the playoff picture, I mean, I know Houston does still kind of had an outside shot. I'm pretty sure that they know that, yeah, they're gonna just try to play spoiler. And this is why also when you have a time where when you have these teams that's fighting for playoff position or teams that is in a comfortable playoff position and you face against some of these bad teams that have nothing to lose and trying to spoil your chances, those are always the most dangerous team to face. And the Rapids basically found this out the hard way, and that, again, if this team does miss the playoffs by maybe like 2 points or even 3 or 4 points, they're going to rue this game and also the game earlier this season when they drew 1-1 against the Dynamo as a reason why they missed the playoffs, because those games should have been all 3 points, and the fact that they weren't able to get 2 out of what should have been a 6-point resort and should have been a season where they did the double against the Dynamo may come back to haunt the Rapids' chances of making the playoffs. And this isn't just me even talking about how, you know, the reason why I say this is a must-win is that, like TFC, they are the worst team in terms of their road form. Only 1 game win on the road. Well, between them and the Quakes, only 1 win on the road, which is the worst in the league. This team need to get those 3 points because they know that they don't do well on the road and usually don't pick up crucial 3 points to help their playoff cases. But that being said, moving on in terms of the next match is RSL versus the Vancouver Whitecaps. So in a way, this game was also a 1-1 draw and also a game that kind of similar to the one between the Rapids versus the Dynamo, where RSL, of course, had the lead, looked like they were trying to hold on, and then the Whitecaps, of course, got the equalizer. Though, I think if you watched how this game played, I think the draw was fair with how this one is, because my oh my, this was a wild game. And in some way, if it wasn't for some bad finishing and also both goalkeeper really stands out for both of these teams, this game could have easily went 3 or even 4 as we've seen before in MLS this season. In the 5th minute stoppage time, or not the 5th minute stoppage time. What am I saying? In the 5th minute of the first half, Blackman missed the header from close range. I mean, I'm getting tired because of the way that I've been watching a lot of MLS soccer, and not to mention I had to work today. But Blackman, as I said, missed the header from close range in the 5th minute before Chang heads it just wide in the 7th minute. And both teams was getting grade A chances early. Little did we know that that would continue, as Hassel then denied Miram from long range before Cavallini looked like he scored the opener for the Whitecaps, but the goal was disallowed for offside, and it's the right call because when you look on the replay, he looked like he was just a step offside. There was a half-hearted shout for a handball that was not given for RSL before Reposo curls one just wide from close range, and then Savarino blasted high on the overhead kick. Again, it feels like it was a wide open game. Like both of these teams were just going at each other up and down. I don't think that should be a big surprise because, you know, RSL at times have been shown to be a team that likes to play quickly on the attack and like to play on the transition. And the Whitecaps are also a definition of a team that loves to play transition. Like, the transition is literally the name of their game. They do this every single game that they play. And as a result of that, you have two teams just kind of go at each other left and right. And that midfield basically was kind of non-existent throughout this game. And so is the defense. Chang then fires it just high from close range before Cavallini had a little cross shot that was tipped over by McMath in the 40th minute. In the 2nd minute of stoppage time, Blackman did blast it high from long range, and despite the numerous opportunities we had the first half, it's still somehow scoreless heading into the second half. Now in the second half, chances continue. Cavallini puts it high in the near post, and this actually came just like 20 seconds into the second half. And I also thought it was a very fast start for the Whitecaps coming out of the break, but RSL looked like they were still in the locker room. Like, they were not mentally prepared to begin the second half. Hassel then robbed Savarino from point-blank range in the 52nd minute. And again, you just sense that the goal was coming into this game. Like, with the amount of chances we have, and I've seen before where we have games where there's a lot of chances for both teams and it ends scoreless, but I kind of feel like this wasn't going to be one of them. Somebody eventually is going to put the ball into the back of the net. And we came close, too, in the 56th minute, probably the closest, as Savarino, which struck the post on a point-blank effort. McMath then denied Gresso on a one-time volley before Tiber become the latest victim of the post, and as he struck that one from point-blank range. But little did we know that also was the beginning of a crazy sequence where after Tiber, of course, struck the post, RSL go on the transition on the other end, and they finally got the opener. It's Cordova scoring from Lawferson to give RSL a 1-0 lead, and that has to be a backbreaker for the Whitecaps. Like, anytime when you're a team that came so close from scoring on one end and then you concede on the other, yeah, that's a double whammy for the Whitecaps. But give the Whitecaps credit; they didn't give up. And again, you know, it was a game where you knew that 1-0 wasn't going to be enough for RSL with how open it was. Gall had a chance in the 69th minute, but he missed wide from outside the box before Julio trying to make it 2-0, but he puts it wide. And again, this game continued to be a track meet with both teams bombing for whenever they have the ball. Rubin then hits one right to Hassel in the 78th minute before McMath denied Berhalter from long range. And I just kind of feel like for RSL, they need to kind of tighten this up, because this game was just getting way too open. And anytime when you, of course, play an open game like that, it's not great if you're the team that is leading the game, especially late in this one. And in fact, I also just realized that I actually forgot to put the rest of my notes. I mean, I was so excited about this game that I literally forgot to put the rest of the notes. So I'm just gonna finish. Actually, I only put like one more note after this one, and that, of course, is talk about how, you know, that open game that RSL was playing, yeah, it was going to come back to haunt them, because as long as Vancouver continue to ball for it, like, they have nothing to lose. If they can see that second goal, so be it. You know, it just feel like this is not good for RSL just to leave this game open, and they pay the ultimate price in the 87th minute as Julian Gresso would score to tie the game up at 1 apiece, and that would be the final score of this game. In a game where it was wild and there was a lot of chances, it ended in a 1-1 draw. And the shots in this one, 13 shots compared to 14 that Vancouver has. Both teams had 4 shots on goal, 6 shots off target for the 4 that the Whitecaps had, 6 shots that was blocked for the 3 that RSL had, and possession-wise, 54% possession compared to 46% possession that the Whitecaps has in this game. And like what I said about Colorado, for RSL, this will definitely feel like a loss. I mean, you know, again, they had chances in this one, and I know the Whitecaps also have it. but you simply need to close out the game, and that was not the correct way for them to close out the game. They left the game wide open when they didn't need to do so, and that it kind of come back to haunt them in this one. And that, yeah, with them dropping points in this one. I mean, again, the only good news is that at least other team around them also dropped points. But one of those teams that did not is Minnesota United, and I also will once again reiterate how big that win the Loons had against Austin, because out of all those teams that was in that jumbo mess in the Western Conference, I believe it's only Minnesota, Nashville, and the Galaxy were able to take advantage of getting win, and the rest of the team around them either lost or dropped points. So yeah, the good news for RSL is that they didn't lose some ground to the team below them, and in certain way or in some extent they didn't lose ground in terms of the team in third place, but they definitely lost ground in terms of the team that is in fourth place. And this is also why that game between RSL versus Minnesota in a couple or I think that game is going to be in 10 days or so. Oh boy, that is going to be a big game. And also a little spoiler alert, I'm actually going to be going to that game. But moving on into the last game on this board, and the last game to finish off match week number 26 in terms of the Saturday action is the Quakes versus LAFC, and this was probably the most MLS result possible. I mean, I did say in the preview, as much as I know that the Quakes have no chance against LAFC, the only way that I think they might have a chance is that if this game turns out to be peak MLS, which is when you see kind of a peak MLS game, sometimes it could be like a wild game, but a peak MLS moment is when one team that is considered one of the worst team in the league can somehow beat the best team in the league. And it also kind of continued that narrative and continued that saying that this is a league that has parity, and this is a league where anybody can beat anybody at time. You can have the worst team in the league can beat the best team in the league. And while the Quakes were not the worst team in the league, I mean, they're pretty close to it. They pull off probably the biggest surprise resort in terms of the match week, and maybe one of the biggest surprise resort of this season by pulling a 2-1 win against LAFC. Now, I also will say that LAFC did not play most of their starters in this game, and that maybe that of course come back to haunt them, because when you decided to kind of rest some guys against a bad team, the other team is going to be very offended by that, because of the fact that maybe they didn't give them enough, if not respect, and maybe that's why I think the Quakes really play with vengeance in this game, and really want to show that LAFC that the way that you just put a weak roster and trying to disrespect us, especially in our own house, we were not gonna let that happen. Though in the first half, I thought, as expected, LAFC was on the front foot, and that the Quakes were looking to just kind of bunker early and pray for a 0-0 draw. Little do we know that was not the case, because in the 15th minute, Benji Kikanovic would score from Thompson and Espinoza to give the Quakes a 1-0 win. This was a great game for Tommy Thompson, probably the best game that he had this season, and the same goes for Espinoza. But yeah, that definitely did not fit the script in terms of what I thought was going to happen, and gives the Quakes a 1-0 lead, though Arango trying to equalize quickly for LAFC, but he fires it just wide from long range. But then for the part of the second half, especially the middle part of it, the Quakes were actually dictating plays against LAFC. And I know that LAFC has known to be off to a slow start, but this was probably the worst slow start that they had. They just had no rhythm on the attack and in the final third whatsoever. Though that kind of quickly changes, because, like I said, with every slow start that LAFC had, eventually they're going to turn things around. And they kind of did near the end of the first half, as Arango with them fires it high from long range before he actually shook the post from 10 yards out, and LAFC was awakened. They were trying to press to get the equalizer before halftime. Mendez tried to do so, but he blasted high from long range, and despite the numerous pressure that the Quakes had to weather, they somehow head into halftime with a 1-0 lead. Though in the second half, Nathan did had a free header that missed just high before Ibowasi missed wide from close range. And again, I thought it was a promising start for the Quakes, but I said the same thing about DC when they play against LAFC. And how many times I've also said, or as the same thing I said in that game between DC and LAFC, you know, when you don't put away chances against superior team, it's going to come back to haunt them. And little do we know, it happened again as in the 54th minute, Mahala Opoku, the same guy that of course scored the winning goal in that game against DC, he scored again here from Acosta to tie the game up at 1 apiece. There was then a shout for a penalty for LAFC that was not given, but there was no doubt the momentum was with the black and gold. And if you feel like normal service was going to be resumed, and this is when LAFC is going to come back and just really put a stomping on the Quakes. Holland's head heads it wide from close range before Palacio had a shot from long range that goes wide. And to make the headline of the fact that normal service is resumed, this is when Steve Cherundolo realized that, yeah, he needed to put some of his starters to trying to finish this game, as both Vela, Cifuentes, and Ilie were summoned in this game. But little did we know that, as I said, as much as we thought that normal service was resumed, it quickly become a game where this looked like it was going to be a very MLS reserve, because in the 77th minute against the run of play, K-Cal would score from Thompson and Espinoza to make it 2-1 in favor of the Quakes. Yep, that's the same K-Cal that has had a very poor season this year, would come off the bench and score a goal against a guy that also have not had a great season in Tommy Thompson. Like, as soon as he, of course, scored and it was Thompson the one that assists, I had a feeling the Quakes could pull this off, because it just feels like there is just some, like, this game shouldn't be is not only not going to going according to script, but it's just gone completely against the script. And when you have those kind of games in MLS, you just feel like it seems like it's going to be that night where the team that doesn't want to follow the script and wants to pull off the big upset is going to get that in the end. And they had that chances was improved, as Ilie, who, remember how I mentioned he of course came into this game. Well, it didn't take long for him to giving it his marching order, as he of course got a second yellow card. I mean, that has to be one of the quickest time to get a second yellow card after you just came on like about 10 minutes ago. But yeah, he was giving his marching order, and then Remedi had a chance to make it 3-1, but he puts it wide from close range, and there was no doubt the momentum was with the Quakes again. They were looking to try to get that third goal, but then in the latter part of this game, this kind of makes you a reminder that as much as you think that the Quakes can pull off a win, it also doesn't mean that you know, it doesn't mean that they're gonna do it easily, because again, you know, anytime when you have hope about this team, they're gonna try to crush it. Though that being said, there was some pushing and shoving that was going on between both teams, because here's a reminder that, you know, even though I know this is not as heated as the Cali Classico we've seen between the Quakes and the Galaxy, whenever you have a game between a NorCal versus a SoCal team, you know it's going to be heated, and it was kind of in this play. In the third minute of stoppage time, Ibobasi did try to put it away, but he hits one right to Crepeau, and then Nathan almost commit a sinister turnover. Well, he actually did commit a bad turnover, and almost kind of did a Quakes moment, as he gave the ball right to Orongo, and Orongo actually went for on goal and tried to chip it over JT Marcinkowski, but he wasn't able to do so. And despite just some incredible late pressure that LAFC was putting on the Quakes, somehow the Quakes survived. They win 2-1 in this game against LAFC, as the shots in this one, 15 shots for the 13 that LAFC had, 2 shots on goal for the 6 that the Quakes has, 8 shots off target for the 4 that LAFC had, 1 shot that was blocked for the 7 that LAFC had, and possession-wise, 64% possession compared to 36% possession that the San Jose Earthquakes has in this game. And again, I wish this team can stop giving me hope that they can still make it to the playoffs. I mean, when I look at the standings, I mean, they are actually just 7 points back, and they, you know, still kind of have an outside shot, and especially, you know, pulling off of a big upset like this, especially against a rival, maybe that can give them something. But at the same time, I'm just going to keep saying that I don't think this team is going to make it to the playoffs, and maybe this is just a combination of the fact that the Quakes were simply want to show LAFC that, yeah, they are, even though they're not having a good season, the fact that they simply decided to put a B team against the Quakes was a huge disrespect, and they definitely took it personally in this game. Though, that being said, again, for LAFC, as much as I know their fan base was not happy with Steve Cherundolo with them putting a B team, I can understand why that is the case. And I know there's been always that talk of them want to reach that points record that New England set last year. At the end of the day, this team their ultimate goal is win MLS Cup, and I don't mind when teams realize that, you know, when they have a tough stretch of the schedule, or a stretch of schedule where they play a lot of games, as you know, for LAFC this is the third game in 7 days. You know, I don't mind them decide to sit some of the bench player, and especially playing against a weak team, because you need to have that fresh body heading into the playoffs. But again, that also means that you basically let the bad team to be kind of taking this game very seriously, because they will feel like they got disrespected with the good team putting a weak squad. And that's exactly why we get the result kind of like this. And also, again, it's a result that just shows you anybody can beat anybody in any given day in MLS. But that being said, hope you guys enjoy this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button. Let me know in the comments below what do you think of this video. And as always, let me know in the comments below what do you think of these 4 games, and also the other 4 games I mentioned on the board. Like I said, I don't know if I can do the review of tonight's game, because I am going to go to the dentist, and I am going to do a deep cleaning, which means I'm going to be numb, and that you know, it depends on if I'm numb in a way where it's not too bad when I, of course, speak and don't sound like a drunk person when I speak. I might be able to pull off the review tomorrow, but don't be surprised, it's going to be a late one, and I do apologize about that. But the good news is I don't think there's a midweek game this week, so if I do a late review, I don't have to just scramble myself and do a preview in terms of the midweek game. Though I do know that after next weekend, there is actually a huge midweek action where there's going to be like 11 games that's going to be happening on Wednesday. And like I mentioned, with a little bit of a breaking news, I'm actually going to be going to Rio Tinto to watch the Loons play against RSL, and I'm going to definitely have my hands full in terms of trying to keep track of all those games in a pivotal point of the MLS season, where it's kind of the home stretch now. It's make or break time for a lot of these teams that is either fighting for playoff position or teams that are trying to fight for home field advantage in the playoffs. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.